All right, here we go. I'm going to walk you through the process for painting the horse of this Native American Indian set from Airfix. This is from the 1970s, so it's sort of like a waxy texture. It's not like a real hard plastic. So you'll see here in a second when I start cleaning up the mold lines, I'm scraping very lightly because it's a lot like scraping soap. And if you do too much, it gets caught too deep, and you'll start like hacking away large bits of the plastic. It's like not the greatest to work with. I do prefer a harder plastic, even though it might be more brittle. The newer stuff cleans up nicer. So here's a list of the brushes I used, or the paints rather. And next I'm going to show you the brushes, and then I'm going to show you the names of the textures. I'm going to put links to all this in the description. You can check it out through Amazon affiliate links. If you buy something through those links, I get a little kickback. It's like pennies, but every little bit helps. I appreciate it if you purchase these things through those links. If not, whatever. Appreciate you watching the video. So here I'm starting with the black on the hooves. The paints I'm using are black, natural gray, white, and then I jump into some red leather and brown, beige red, like some browns for the harness. But other than that, this is a very monochromatic figure. I spray painted the figure black with Vallejo black primer from below, and then I did light gray primer over top of that to create what's called a zenithal prime. Which essentially, the lighter spray paint acts as the sun rays would, and it hits those top forms like really nicely, so you get some undulation between the light and dark shadows. It's much more natural, like the way light would fall. As long as you get good settings and the wind isn't blowing too hard and you get light that comes from all directions. But it's essentially you try and keep the black paint showing through, so you get a nice gradient, dark to light, light to dark. And here I'm taking those same colors, but I'm applying a stippled dry brush texture to the entire figure. So I started with the black, was pretty liberal with the application, wanted those legs to be really dark and to tone back the zenithal highlight that hit them. And then I'm going to work that up with some natural gray, and here you see me adding white as sort of like the third layer. So we've got black, a mid-tone between black and natural gray, and then a mid-tone between natural gray and white, and then the white. And then so I'm slowly building up. That's how I build up my scales. So that's like the most effective way, I think, to do it. You can do that with any color range, right? They can analogous color schemes to get to the same result in contrast, with the white being the brightest. But in this case, the white became a very large stipple effect, which I learned is called a flea bitten pattern. So that was something cool that I learned just through my Googling. I was like, what is a gray and white horse called? I knew they had to have some pattern. They got names for everything. So especially in an old world thing like equestrians, like equestrians, like they have like people who love horses, right? So they got a name for everything, similar to cats. So I digress. I'm just going through the process here again of building up lighter and lighter specks all over the horse where I think they should to shine the most. And then I did not paint where the saddle will sit, because the plan is to next have the saddle painted up and then paint the Native American rider and put him on of a finished piece. Yes, the detail will be lost if you ever take the saddle off and just want to have the horse on display, but it does still kind of look cool when it's done. So it was right here that I realized I would like the nose to be black, and it's also right here that I realized I forgot to clean the mold line on the horse's face. I did everything else, worried about that, and neglected the most important part. So for the eyes, the interior of the nostrils and the interior of the ear, as well as the mane, in fact, I used straight black. I didn't do a ton of blending. I actually did a dry brush of natural gray over the hair without worrying too much about the blending. My focus for the entire miniature was to create an aesthetic and a look in person. So on camera, everything looks HD and everything's in focus, so you can analyze it and scrutinize it. But when you're holding something in your hand, it tends to just look softer naturally. So take that for what it is. I think the goal of this was to have it look great in person. Um, Hopefully, as I progress as an artist and get better, I'll be able to take the quality to a level that looks amazing on film, but I'm just not quite there yet. Still very much a novice and a student of this craft. So my goal is to get better, but also get faster and more efficient. And this process was pretty efficient, and I was very happy with the result. But absolutely, it could be blended better, highlighted better, and smoothed out. I could finish the back where the actual saddle will sit. But for now, I mean, this is I think this is a great demonstration on how to have a miniature done quickly without getting real pretentious about it, and looks good and could be replicated at scale or across an entire batch painting session very easily due to a lot of the legwork is done for you with the zenithal prime, the light gray over the black in the beginning. Then you're just adding textures of that same gradient. So in some ways, this is a great exercise for practicing your gradients, black to white, and then building up those volumetric heightings to create real contrast. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to explore further with other things like maybe tanks or camouflage in this same black-white color scheme as well too. So I'll keep those in mind keep that thought in mind for a future video. Right here, I'm just going back in and picking out some of the details and making them a bit blacker. So maybe they caught a bit of gray overflow when I was flicking paint around, or the paint just wasn't coming through like opaque enough. So this is really just detailing and nitpicking. So here I'm going to introduce one of our two colors. This is red leather. I'm going to water that down, probably too much at this point. Probably should have gone a bit thicker with the first application, but thinner is always better. Those are words to live by. Thinner is always better. I ended up doing 2 coats of the red leather across the harnesses on his face, and then I went in with beige red and very lightly went over some of the raised edges to give them a bit of pop against the brown. It's very subtle. It probably didn't need to get done at the level of detail the rest of the miniature has been so far. It's probably too much, but game time decision, I decided to make it nice, since I know the face will be looked at. So even though that mold line is in the way, I think it's something that can be distracted from a bit with details around the leathering. I felt like the details around where the hair of the horse's butt meets its butt is a little ambiguous. I wasn't sure if there was supposed to be some sort of a tie there, so I just painted one on. Here's where I introduced beige red and applied it as a thin edge highlighting along all of the straps. After the straps were highlighted, I hit them with a little shade. This is Agrax Earth Shade, and it just dulled it down a little bit. It blended the corners, like the seams where it meets the horse's face, a little bit nicer. It's a soft effect. I like it. It's simple. The intrusive thoughts might have won on this decision. I don't know. Once the straps were in a good spot, I turned my attention back to the face and added in a few more details with white. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. This part of the video goes on for what feels like maybe too long, and I'm not sure how to edit it down because I want to show people the process and the steps and be thorough, but I also don't want to bore you to death. Oh my God, so much. So just hang in there for a few more seconds. It won't be long now. Just hang on, hang in there. We're getting through it together. Make those little dots. Any second now, we're going to talk about mud. Oh boy, mud. All right, so this is European mud specifically. I don't know, that's what I got. I probably could have used American mud if I mixed something, but this is really just like a nice muddy mud. Very even brown. It looks great when you start to add in bits of grass and tufts, which you'll see me do here in a second. I add in a little flour. But right now I'm just spreading it on to get a nice even consistency, and then I'm going to add a second layer to give it a bit of depth so I can stick stuff in there. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and I'll show you in a second here, is that when I started to add in the grass, they had an interesting chemical reaction with the glue I was using. So this is just a quick look at the overall depth of the mud that I wanted. This is probably like the bare minimum depth I would want to be able to stick tufts and things in there. I didn't go overboard with the tufts. I wanted to do like a lot more grass and let that muddy texture shine through a bit. But it does sort of get covered up due to my interest in what happens when I apply the grass to the glue. So coming back to that in a second, I have a couple of these pieces of cork that I stuck in. I didn't get great shots of that, unfortunately, but off to the right there is brown cork. When you break it up, it looks like a natural stone, which is awesome. So here I'm sticking in the flower tuft. I have this lone tuft of left over from another project with some flowers on it. I don't think this is actually Army Painter, but I don't know what brand it was, so I didn't list it in the list. But you can find Army Painter tufts with flowers in them. So here I have a mix of gamer grass, like a bunch of different things I mixed together, some real dirt, and then I've got this plastic glue that I was putting over top of the dirt that I mixed in. So the dirt got, like, the top layer got mixed into the muddy layer, and then I added glue, and then on top of that I added these little flecks of gamer grass, and they turned the grass brown, which I thought was really interesting. It's like they perpetually look wet. I don't know if it's that they looked wet or if there was some sort of chemical reaction with the plastic that like almost burned them brown or just changed their color composition. I really don't know. If there's any chemists or scientists that can answer that question, I would love to know what sort of chemical reaction was undergone here, knowing that the solvent is a plastic glue and I don't know what the grass is made of. Like, it could be a plastic texture. I really am not sure, but it feels natural. So that might be something worth looking into. So here I am just tapping the hell out of the base, getting all the loose bits to fall off, wondering if I've unknowingly inhaled some sort of toxic fumes that will wreak havoc on my lymph nodes. Anyway, here's the final result. I did go back in after the fact and clean up a little things here and there and added more grass once I noticed the chemical reaction on here. So subscribe for more. If you know what Patreon is, head on over there. You can join for free, get all the same stuff, or you can support me as a paid member. Thanks for checking out my video, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Okay, so we just performed a little bit of surgery on this guy, and I just couldn't stand it. I had to remove those mold lines. So I'm going to bring down the contrast a little bit here so you can see a bit better. But I had a mold line. Obviously, we had the mold line that went straight down the face, which was very distracting to me and disappointing. That mostly I was just disappointed in myself for missing it on what I had deemed to be a significant video of effort for myself for the channel. So I thought that it was worth the extra effort to get in there and clean up that one mistake that was really bugging me. And all I did was very gently scrape it down with the edge of a X-Acto knife, like this. And it removed it, but it also obviously had to remove the paint in order to do that. So what I've done here is I'm just going to go right over the plastic with black. It's a small area that I don't need to use a primer, and I'm not going to be touching it. I'm going to be sealing it next. It's such a small area that it's not worth figuring out the primer. And I actually think that having this black shape down the center of it is kind of a cool way to offset what was overall like a pretty like, so it was basically just like a pretty plain white face, but adding in this divider up the center gives it a bit more visual interest, I think. So we can play to that effect. Now, my initial goal was to like build back up and do the same pattern again. So all I'm going to do is add in little specks of black which are just very thin down, little dabs, very little. And I'm going to blend those down into the white rather than the white blend into the gray. So it becomes like the black is our, it's forming our mesh. It's drying a little too fast on my paintbrush, which means the paintbrush is not moist enough, so I'll wet it, clean it up. Just like little dots here, slightly down the slopes of the snout. Almost indistinguishable, but enough that it begins to separate the white and black more, and then we'll come in and we'll mix in a little bit of our black that's already on our brush with the natural gray that's already on the palette. And then basically we'll just do this right over where the two colors extremely contrast, and that'll give us a slight blend between the two. And we're just like super small, this isn't a big deal, but it'll just blend it together a bit nicer. So the trick is to do it on the white sides and the black sides and meet in the middle. So it's almost like a zipper pulling the two colors together. Then I will hit it with I'll bring this up a little bit lighter, just in a couple key spots. It's looking a little dark on the cheekbones. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. All right. That was some real quick surgery. I want to just make sure I clean up the nose, look at everything one last time. You can see the strap here at the top needs to be touched up just a touch. Luckily I already still have the leather on my palette. I haven't changed this out. It's a great thing about a wet palette is if you're working on a project for a week and you leave all your colors on there, they'll still be workable. I go through very few of these. I basically go through one a project, which I think is good. All right, rotating glamour shot time.